The night carried weight, but for once, it wasn't heavy. 4 boys, tuxedos sharp, shoulders loose. For the first time in a long time, they weren't proving anything. They weren't defending their tone, their posture, their right to breathe freely in a world trained to misread them. They were just riding. The hum of the engine, the flicker of passing streetlights, the steady rhythm of laughter bouncing off leather seats. No one said it out loud, but they all felt it. This was the end of something. 12 years of pencils and fire drills and hall passes, gone in a blur of suits and sneakers and after-party plans. Jamal sat in the back, elbow against the window, head leaning just enough to blur the streetlights into streaks. Someone shouted a joke from the front seat. The whole car shook with laughter. Even Jamal cracked a smile, wide, real. And in that moment, time paused. No college essays, no job applications, no pressure to have a plan. Just bass in the speakers and the comfort of boys who grew up on the same streets, wore the same colors, ducked the same assumptions. For a few blocks, they were untouchable. And then came the lights. It began with a faint flicker in the rear view. Then the flash, red, blue, red. The rhythm every black teen in America knows by instinct. The car slowed. Music cut. Jokes died in mid-E. All 4 boys sat still, shoulders square, hands visible, eyes forward, breathing shallow. No one moved. They didn't have to ask what this was. They'd been taught, by parents, by teachers, by life, how to act when the bad shows up uninvited. The officer stepped out. Boots hit asphalt. Door creaked. And then, stillness. But no yelling. No hand on the holster. Just footsteps. Calm. Steady. Approaching. The man who appeared at the driver's side window didn't match the tension in the air. No scowl. No barked orders. Just a slow smile. And a question. So, what's next? For a second, no one responded. Then one voice broke through the silence. Med school. Engineering. NBA. God willing. 3 answers. Quick. Confident. Almost rehearsed. Like they practiced this moment in their heads, just in case someone asked. And then came the pause. The long one. The kind that hangs in the air long enough for everyone to notice. The officer leaned closer. His voice lowered, but stayed calm. You got no plans. Jamal blinked. Eyes forward. Mouth still. He had answers. They just weren't ready yet. And somehow, that silence said more than words ever could. Night wore on. Outside, the world slept. Inside, Jamal lay motionless, eyes fixed on a ceiling he'd seen 1,000 times. But tonight it felt like it was looking back. The digital clock glowed 2:07 a.m. The house creaked. Somewhere down the hall, a faucet dripped. But all Jamal could hear was the officer's voice. Not accusing, not mocking, just curious. You got no plans. A question so simple, it peeled back everything. He'd dodged that question before, at barbershops, family gatherings, even at the kitchen table. He'd mastered the nod, the vague shrug, the half smile. But tonight, silence wasn't a shield. It was a mirror. Flashes came back. The blank college form crumpled in his backpack. The missed appointment with a counselor he didn't think could help. The empty lines where career goals were supposed to go. He wasn't sleeping. He was listening to a voice inside that had always been quiet. Tonight, it refused to go back under. Monday came fast. The hallways buzzed with plans. Scholarships won. Dorm rooms picked. Majors declared. Posters lined the walls. Class of 2025. We did it. Every conversation around him felt like a declaration of certainty. Jamal walked slower now. He smiled when they looked, nodded when asked. But inside, the noise was deafening. He wasn't without ambition, just without a script. He hadn't failed. He just hadn't rushed. But the world doesn't give applause for patience. No medal for searching. Only questions, sideways glances, and the weight of comparison. Everywhere he turned, it felt like everyone else had already arrived. And Jamal, he was still at the starting line, one foot lifted, waiting for the courage to move. When the world grew too loud, Jamal went inward and backward. To the man who never needed a podium to make an impact, his grandfather, an old photo on the nightstand, a familiar scent in the coat closet, that quiet strength passed down, unspoken. As a child, Jamal used to sit on his lap, tracing the wrinkles in his hands like road maps. His grandfather told stories, not always with words, but with presence. "You come from builders," he once said. "People who didn't wait for permission, who shaped futures with what they had, not what they were given." In Jamal's room, reminders lived everywhere. A poster of Malcolm, a quote from King. "Faith is taking the first step even when you don't see the staircase." Purpose, Jamal realized, might not always arrive like lightning. Sometimes, it hums beneath the surface until you decide to listen. The man behind the badge had his own story, but no one asked. After the stop, he sat alone in his cruiser. Window cracked, coffee cooling, sunrise bleeding into his windshield. He reached for the photo tucked into his visor. A younger version of himself in a cap and gown, eyes full of hope no one expected from his side of town. He wasn't there to lecture. He wasn't fishing for answers. He was planting something. In his notepad, next to a list of calls, was one handwritten line. "Never forget where you came from." To the boys, he was just a pause in the road. But to him, they were a reminder that someone once stopped for him too, and asked the same question. Weeks passed. No lightning bolt. No viral moment. Just pages turning slowly. In the school library, Jamal sat still, pen in hand, notebook open to a fresh sheet. At the top, he wrote, "I don't know yet, but I'm ready to try." That was enough. That was his beginning. He showed up to the college prep session, sat in the back row, listened, took notes, didn't raise his hand, but he was there. He didn't become a new person overnight. He just decided the question didn't have to scare him anymore. The mornings came easier. The weight didn't vanish, but it felt lighter. Jamal tied his brother's tie before school, laughed at the crooked knot, promised he'd fix it when he got home. At a youth event, he passed out flyers. No spotlight, just small moments done with purpose. He wasn't chasing applause. He was building a rhythm. And it wasn't loud, but it was steady. The boy who once said nothing was becoming someone who didn't need to speak loudly to know his value. He didn't need the world to understand his pace. He just needed to keep walking. If you've ever felt behind, you're not. If you've ever sat in silence when the world demanded a perfect answer, that's not failure. That's the start of something real. Purpose doesn't shout. It waits for you when you stop pretending to have it all figured out. And when you finally ask yourself what's next, you're already on the way. If Jamal's journey touched you, hit like, share it with someone figuring things out, and subscribe for more stories that sound like you.